So what was the timeline of this feature? When did you guys realize, okay, retakes is one of the first use cases we want to build? How did you guys experiment with LLMs and the prompting to figure out, okay, we can actually solve this? Because I know, especially back then, one of the big concerns was like context window. Can we even put in a whole podcast transcript into an LLM? It was a lot less possible back then. And then how did you guys eventually roll it out to users and have the confidence to ship it to everybody?
Right, like with the context window, how we had to solve that problem was like, can we send it over in chunks? And then like, okay, that works for remove retakes, right? Because usually you can send it over in chunks that are meaningful enough that you can detect retakes. But that was a problem for buttons that you would assume would be able to contain a longer context window, something like rewrite, where really to rewrite, you probably want to understand the complete journey before you kind of like rewrite it, right? So we definitely had to understand the limitations of the technology at the time. You asked like, how did we decide on the use case? Well, I think like one of the great things about, Descript is we already had a really deep understanding of customer problems, right? At this point, we had been around for a couple of years. We had watched people, person after person, go through the multi-hour process of editing a video. And we kind of understood, okay, you have like your script readers and you have your improvers. Script readers will have one of two problems. Either they're reading off a script like this, in which case the problem that they have is that they're not looking at the camera, or they're reading off a script and then like looking into the camera and delivering just that one sentence and often screwing it up. And so for that first kind of reader, we looked around and found a model called eye contact that we integrated into Descript. So you can just add eye contact and, you can see, here it is without eye contact, with eye contact, without, with. So that it looks like
Oh,
you're
but
always
pretty
here.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for people that are, doing the read and then do a take, they tend to have a lot of retakes. So we sort of already had mapped out, like, here is the journey of being a YouTuber or a podcaster. Either you're scripted or you're not. If you're scripted, one of these two things will help you. And if you're not, then what you're going to want to do is edit for clarity. Edit for clarity is the action that you want to use if, like me, the way that you record video is just kind of blathering into the camera for 18 minutes, and then you want it to kind of, just take out all the parts where I didn't know what I was talking about and make it sound really cogent and concise.
Okay. So if I'm somebody trying to take the lesson from this, we have our clear mental model of what are some of the user problems that we aren't solving today. In this case, some of them are eye correction and removing retakes. And then we're looking at what becomes recently possible with the advent of LLMs, maybe like being able to actually identify what those retakes are and this new model being released around eyes and incorporate that into our product. How did you roll this out to users and develop confidence that this should go out to everybody?
Yeah, so for AI tools, what we did was, if you have a toolbar, you need more than one thing to be part of that toolbar. So when we announced the idea of Underlord, which is what we used to call this, but when we announced the idea of the AI toolbar, we thought like, what are 6 killer apps that could be part of this toolbar based on problems that customers have, problems we think we could solve well with the technology, or problems that we don't think we can solve well with the technology today, but we think that over the next few months, as the context window increases or whatever, like the existing, like we were at an age then also where it felt like every 2 weeks things got step change better. I feel like now we're sort of in like the boring part where it's like things are pretty good and each new model release is just like incrementally better than the last. I hope I'm wrong and like, we get another banger in a month or two, but I feel like the last few, it's been like, okay. Anyways, things were changing so quickly that we also did have a rolling backlog of like, this is a really great idea, but it's blocked because of technological limits right now, but we've already thought through a lot of how the product will work so that as soon as the technology is ready, boom, we're ready to go. And so we kind of had that mapped out in our mind, and we had 6 that we wanted to go to market with. I believe those were edit for clarity, remove filler words, remove retakes, add chapters, and then a bunch of these publish ones because they're really easy, right? From like a technology perspective, you need to write a good prompt, but like drafting a title, summarizing, show notes, YouTube description, social post, blog post, like those are pretty easy to do. The brainstorming ones, somewhat easy to do too. So those were the ones we kind of went to market with first. You asked how we made sure they were good enough. This was like before there were a gazillion thought pieces about how evals ought to work. And so a lot of it was, but a lot of it like, was human-driven evals, but by another name, where you're sort of like, okay, I'm going to test this out a bunch on a bunch of production data and see if I would use the result as a customer.
Yeah.
And if I would, ship it. And if I wouldn't, don't ship it.
I hope you enjoyed that short clip. You can check out the full episode here.